Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you a very sad and moving story. It's the story of Maria, a woman who was sexually abused by her father throughout her childhood. Before we start, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss my next videos. Maria, aged 27, still bears the scars of her past. Her story begins when she was just 5 years old. Following the divorce of her parents, her mother, due to financial difficulties, left her in the care of her father and grandmother. Maria subsequently grew up in an environment characterized by the influence of a harsh and authoritarian father. At the time, she lived with her grandmother, father, and cousins, but everyone had their own room. In the middle of the night when everyone was asleep, Samuel would come into Maria's room, crawl under the covers, and start rubbing himself against her. Maria said her father would start by stroking her thighs and then under her knickers. This happened several times. Sometimes Samuel would even ask Maria to touch his private parts when no one was home. About a year later, when she was in her first year at school, her father began taking inappropriate photographs of her. Maria remembers it vividly. Her father sat her down on the living room table, took off her knickers, pulled up her skirt, and photographed her. He saved all these photos and videos on his computer. This happened after he picked her up from school. He told her things like, "I'm teaching you for your future boyfriends, so you'll know how to do it in bed later. You'll thank me." As the years went by, abuse continued to be a part of everyday life in the house. Samuel no longer contented himself with abusing Maria. He also terrorized her with chilling threats. "If you ever say anything to anyone, I'll kill you." These words echoed in Maria's head day and night, like a curse. Fear crept into her mind, making her wary and silent. Maria grew up in a world of suffering and silence. Her father imposed strict rules. Maria was not allowed to go out with her friends or receive visitors. When friends came to the house, Samuel lied, saying Maria was away when she was actually inside. On the rare occasions when Maria visited her mother, her father kept calling her to come home. Despite the strict prohibitions imposed by her father, Maria sometimes managed to get close to her classmates. At the age of 11, she befriended Sarah, a sweet and kind girl, who became her best friend. The two girls shared moments of complicity at school, talking about their dreams and concerns as children. One day, when they were alone in a classroom at break time, Sarah noticed a sad pain in Maria's eyes. Maria began to tell Sarah the story of her life. She told of her father's abuse, the constant threats, and the constant fear in the house. She told how Samuel prevented her from going out and seeing her friends, how she felt trapped in an invisible prison. Sarah listened in silence, with tears in her eyes, as Maria recounted her suffering. Sarah felt a surge of anger and injustice at her friend's situation and asked Maria to tell her mother everything. Sarah tried to convince her, but Maria remained closed, terrified of the consequences. The fear her father had inflicted on her was too deep. She felt that every word she uttered could put her life in danger. It was at the age of 14 that Maria found the courage to tell her mother what was happening to her father. Hoping to find refuge and help, she confided her pain. But her mother refused to believe her. Samuel denied everything, and Maria's mother chose to believe him rather than her own daughter. It was a devastating blow for Maria. She felt betrayed and abandoned. Her own mother, the person she loved and respected, refused to see the truth. Maria lost all self-confidence and sank deeper into her silence. Samuel's violence continued, and Maria endured it all without complaint. At 16, Maria found an escape in reading and writing. Books offered her solace and an escape from her daily life. At the age of 17, Maria had developed an inner strength that enabled her to resist her father's threats. One evening, she discovered that Samuel had begun to abuse her half-sisters, who were too young to defend themselves. Maria was overcome with anger and determination. She could not allow her half-sisters to go through the same hell she had. When Maria decided to lodge a complaint against her father, she knew it would be a difficult journey. The trial was a real ordeal. Samuel, her father, was an influential man, known for his extensive connections. Maria, with her iron determination, prepared as best she could, but she knew there would be many obstacles. The trial began in a courtroom where Maria had to face her father and the skeptical looks of the judges and lawyers. Samuel presented himself as a loving and caring father, denying all the accusations made against him. His lawyers, who were paid handsomely, used all their resources to discredit Maria, making her out to be a liar and a manipulator. Her mother and grandmother refused to support her, convinced that she was acting out of hatred for her father. Their betrayal added another layer of pain to what Maria already had to endure. Her grandmother begged her to withdraw her complaint, but Maria, firm in her decision, refused. She knew she had to protect her half-sisters and stop Samuel from continuing his abuse. Despite her efforts and testimony, Maria lost the case. The judge, clearly influenced by Samuel's wealth, ruled in her favor. Devastated but not defeated, Maria decided to appeal. At the second trial, Maria still had a little hope, but the pain of the first betrayal was still raw. She knew it would be difficult, but she still hoped for a little justice. Her mother and grandmother, sitting on the defense side, were still standing against her. Maria felt trapped by pain and loneliness. The second verdict was just as cruel as the first. The judge's decision, still influenced by Samuel, fell like a sentence of despair. Maria felt devastated, drained of all energy. Words failed her to describe the immense sadness she felt. Once again, justice had abandoned her, leaving her alone with a family that rejected her. These two legal setbacks had a profound effect on Maria. She felt betrayed by the system, by her family, by the whole world. The lack of support from her mother and grandmother only increased her sense of despair. Maria was exhausted, overwhelmed by injustice and powerlessness. But despite the pain, a small flame of hope continued to burn inside her. She refused to give in. Maria knew she had to keep fighting, for herself and for her half-sisters, to put an end to this cycle of suffering and silence. These trials left a deep mark on her, a painful memory of not being believed by her own family. Yet despite the tears and the grief, Maria decided to carry on. The road to justice was still long, but she was prepared to do anything to get there, even if it meant going through even more pain. But Maria did not give up. She knew that the truth had to be revealed, and that justice had to be done, not only for her, but also for her half-sisters. Determined, she chose to share her story on television. Her moving and heartfelt testimony touched many people. Powerful men and women, touched by her courage, decided to help her. Thanks to their support, Maria filed a third complaint. This time, the trial took place in a different atmosphere. The media had seized on the case, and public pressure was immense. Maria's new lawyers were determined to get justice, and the evidence was overwhelming. The crucial moment of the trial came when Maria was called to testify. With incredible strength, she recounted in detail the years of suffering she had endured. She spoke of her physical and mental injuries, of her father's threats, and of the constant terror in which she had lived. She also spoke of her half-sisters, of her desire to protect them and put an end to their ordeal. This time, the judges could no longer ignore the truth. The evidence was too solid, the testimony too numerous and too consistent. The verdict was in Maria's favor. Samuel was found guilty of his crimes and sentenced to a severe prison term. But in a panic, Samuel fled before the sentence could be carried out. He disappeared, and despite an intensive search, was nowhere to be found for months. Finally, the news of his death on the run reached Maria. She felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Maria was deeply relieved to have been able to protect her half-sisters. She knew that, thanks to her courage and determination, they would not have to go through the same hell as she had. She felt immense pride in having broken the cycle of violence in her family, despite the many obstacles and betrayals she had had to face. Maria had finally obtained justice, and this victory marked a turning point in her life. Today, Maria is 27 years old. She has transformed her suffering into a vocation. She passed her high school diploma with distinction and won a scholarship that enabled her to leave the city and start a new life elsewhere. This opportunity offered her an escape and a fresh start, far from the shadows of her past. It's been a long road, but Maria has found the strength to overcome the hardships. She looks to the future with determination, knowing that she is no longer alone and that her story can inspire others to find their own path to freedom. The pain of her past will never completely disappear, but she has learned to transform it into a strength, a light that guides not only her own life, but the lives of many others. Tell us what you think of this story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.